The death of Prince Emeric was followed by an attempt on the life of King Stephen. Suspecting his cousin Vasul, the king had him arrested, blinded, and poured molten lead into his ears. Quite understandably, Vasul's sons fled the realm fearing for their lives, while Stephen designated his nephew, Peter Orseolo, as heir. In this case, Stephen was fighting ancient custom, like so many cases in Europe, where inheritance through the female line was frowned upon. And of course, upon Stephen's death in 1038, chaos ensued. The chronicles describe Peter Orseolo as a model of a chivalrous knight, but he also came to Hungary very unfamiliar with how things worked. He started changing noble and church officials with his favorites, and it's written that he filled his court with shouting Germans and chattering Italians, making him very disliked. So in 1041 the nobility overthrew him in favor of Stephen's other nephew, Samuel Abba, also inheriting through one of Stephen's sisters. Peter fled to the court of Emperor Henry III and asked him to invade Hungary on his behalf, which Henry did. After 2 years of fighting, Henry put Peter back on the throne, and Peter swore loyalty as vassal to Henry. Samuel Abba presumably died soon after these events. Things came to a head again in 1046 when a traditionalist pagan rebellion broke out and killed a lot of clergy. The nobility seized the chance and directed the rebellion against Peter. They then offered the crown to one of Vasul's sons. But instead of picking the pagan Levente, they offered it to the very Christian Andrew. Andrew entered the realm and defeated Peter, forcing him to retreat. It is written that after his defeat, Peter was captured, blinded, castrated, and died. After his coronation, now Andrew I split control of his realm between himself and his brother Bela, who he made Herzeg, that is to say a duke, and designated him as his heir, with the hopes that this would stop Bela from overthrowing him. Their brother Levente had died not long after Andrew's coronation, so there was no need to worry about him. Andrew's and Bela's arrangement worked. With support from Byzantium and the Kievan Rus, who Andrew had aligned through marriage, they saw off 2 attacks by Emperor Henry III, who tried to vassalize Hungary. Again, then Andrew got a son, Solomon, and Bela was not happy. In a diplomatic turnaround, Andrew soon had Solomon engaged to the daughter of Henry III, and Andrew was also pushing hard to make Bela abandon his claim to the throne. One day Andrew summoned Bela to court and made him an offer, between a crown and a sword. If Bela picked the crown, Andrew would have had his brother removed. But Bela was warned about this beforehand, so he picked the sword. Not long after, he packed up his things and fled to Poland, only to return with an army in 1060. And so another succession war began, with Andrew getting help from his in-law, now Emperor Henry IV. But Andrew was killed in battle, and Bela took the throne for a reign of 1,000 days. His rule was marked by putting down another traditionalist rebellion. The rebellion was a result of the Hungarian transformation in government, where people were no longer being governed by their kin or relations, but by some noble stranger, or worse, foreign nobleman. Bela died in 1063, and Henry IV seized the opportunity to pounce and install his brother-in-law, Andrew's son, Solomon, on the Hungarian throne, while Bela's son fled into exile. There was some rapprochement with Bela's sons pretty soon when Solomon offered the oldest son, Geza, a dukedom, which worked for a decade, leading to successful wars against the Pechenegs and Byzantium. Then, after an argument over the spoils of war, Geza rebelled against Solomon. Solomon was defeated and fled the realm, taking the royal treasury and the crown with him. He went to Henry IV. and swore Hungary and vassalage to him. Now, even though Geza, now Geza I, gained the throne, he still needed a crown. One crown was offered by Pope Gregory VII, who asked for Geza's vassalage in return, so his offer was refused. Another crown was offered by Byzantine Emperor Michael VII, apparently with no strings attached. Now this crown, and along with another crown, is said to have been later forged together into the Holy Crown of Hungary. That is to say, the Holy Crown of Saint Stephen. That is Saint Stephen I of Hungary. We'll get to that later. Due to my not wanting to complicate things too much, the crown will be depicted as the complete crown of Saint Stephen from now on. And yes, I know the cross on top was bent quite a few centuries later, but I'm lazy. Geza died in 1077. Considering his sons Almos and Koloman were too young at the time, his brother Ladislav took the throne. Ladislav I's reign would be the first stable one since Stephen's own. In a display of clemency, Ladislav allowed Solomon to return, only to arrest him after discovering that Solomon was plotting against him. Ladislav's reign was mostly a time of peace, mostly because the powers on his borders had other problems. Ladislav had new laws written, cooperated with the church reform movement, and thus managed to persuade the papacy to canonize Stephen and Prince Emmerich. This is why Stephen I is referred to as Saint Stephen. Ladislav himself would achieve mythical status in Hungary, being portrayed as a model of a Christian chivalry and honor. He himself would be canonized in 1192 and became one of the most popular saints in the realm. Oh, and near the end of his reign he started a project of acquiring the kingdom of Croatia and Dalmatia for himself through his sister, spreading his realm southwards and acquiring the area that will become the kingdom of Slavonia. Ladislav designated Almos as his successor by giving him rule over the new lands, while his brother Koloman was intended for a career in the priesthood. Things did not work out that way, to say the least.